we are now being told, because Mr. Trump is said to be leaning into the wishes of Republicans who are sympathetic towards Ukraine, that he will indeed sign the bill. And Speaker Johnson said he's going to push it through. There is a presidential waiver included in that, so he will have some flexibility. But this is what I've argued all along, is that in order for Mr. Putin to stop this senseless killing, is that the noose around him, the economic noose, needs to tighten significantly.
Hello and welcome to Frontline for Times Radio. I'm Louis Sykes. Today we're joined by Michael Bociurkiw, a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and also an author and journalist who runs the Substack World Briefing. Michael, thank you very much for joining us again.
Good to be with you again. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's written my script here that there's been many bombings, and unfortunately Odessa hasn't been targeted recently, but that has changed just this morning. So I did want to start asking you about the drone attack that has landed in your home city just today.
Sure. Yeah, in fact, just a few minutes ago, the morning was punctuated by on and off air raid sirens, and apparently some incoming Russian drones were struck over the seafront. And of course, the beaches are packed at this time of year. So apparently some of the remnants of that drone did fall near the beach areas, reminding people there that it can be dangerous. But yeah, we've had several days of calm here, and I walk along the beachfront every evening along the port, checking things out, listening to open air free concerts. It's just a blissful time this time of year. And I was just thinking yesterday, wow, we've had like 3 or 4 days of calm, but in wartime, the brain acts in a funny way, and you start to question, well, are they gearing up for something big, or is Putin in his twisted mind thinking that he's going to make it all the way up to Odessa, as a lot of people fear, by the way, and he wants to retain it and not bomb the crap out of it like he did with Mariupol. But having said that, there was a strike on a suburban Odessa neighborhood today. Civilian infrastructure damaged, including a car repair shop and houses, but also a horse stable, where one horse was killed instantly and another badly injured. And, it goes to show that even the most harmless creatures on the planet are not immune from this man-made war that was started, as if anyone needs a reminder, by Russia. These we've seen throughout the war, of course, not only horrible civilian toll, deaths of soldiers, of course, damage to infrastructure, but a lot of loved ones, four-legged loved ones, killed or lost, and I dwell on this a bit because in my walks, I also see that, for example, dog ownership has gone through the roof here in Odessa and probably many other Ukrainian cities, because they're a source of comfort to people. And I've seen this in other hotspots as well. And I even have dog owners tell me that the dogs not only provide them with comfort, but they're an advanced warning system. They actually detect or somehow sense incoming missiles before the sirens even go off. So I thought I'd mention that because, again, after more than 3 years of war, these kind of subtleties, these nuances, bubble up to the surface, and I think really worth sharing.
And of course, this is part of this ongoing and intensifying Russian air bombardment at the moment, which, almost nightly, it seems, will set a new record for the amount of drones, the amount of damage, the amount of strikes. What's the impact of that been on your friends and colleagues in Ukraine?
Well, horrible. And of course, Kyiv has been the most worst hit, biggest city in Ukraine, of course, the capital. And it seems that the timing by Russia coincides with whenever Mr. Zelensky is out of town, perhaps in high-level meetings, whether it be in the Vatican or in Rome or in London. As I said yesterday on another broadcaster, I think this is time to humiliate Mr. Zelensky, to send a signal to European leaders that they're powerless. And the scary thing is, the arithmetic seems to be adding up now, is that in unfortunately a short amount of time, Russia will be in the position to launch up to 1,000 drones a day. No Ukrainian city is going to be able to handle that, no air defense system. And when you mix into that the powerful missiles, as we saw the other day, missiles went as far west as Sumy, as Lutsk near the Polish border, triggering a NATO alert. And now what's happening as well is the Russians have become more innovative and creative. So these drones are mixed in with decoy drones, but also taking very circuitous routes. Also, they fly faster, they fly higher, and the number of kg of explosives has doubled from about 40 or 50 to 90 to 100. So they really pack a powerful punch. A lot of talk, of course, of more Patriot missile defense systems being sent to Ukraine. There's a worldwide shortage right now of the US made weapons defense system. Ukraine is said to have a handful, maybe as many as 6. It's a secret number. But Mr. Zelensky said as many as 25 are needed. But, these are very, very expensive, sophisticated weapon system. You're not going to use them to shoot down, hundreds of drones. You're going to save them for those fast, powerful incoming missiles that do tremendous, tremendous damage. So that is what worries me, is that there's no way that Ukraine can have this kind of shield that perhaps Israel, which is the size of New Jersey, has. Ukraine is basically the size of France. So yeah, it's really regrettable that we've come to this point that we are right now.
And why do you think this the intensity of this bombardment is happening now, and why in this number? I mean, is it political? It doesn't seem to be doing the Kremlin that many favors on the world stage. Is it just that they have these weapons to hand that they are using them in this number?
An analyst said this morning that there will come a time when Mr. Putin runs out of money, runs out of weapons, runs out of men. They're dying at an incredible rate, something like 1,000 a day, and perhaps even runs out of domestic support. We see, for example, what's happening in mainland China right now in the PRC, where Xi Jinping is said to be losing support of some very senior military personnel, leadership rather. So, it's very difficult to lift the lid on what's going on internally in the Kremlin, but I think he realizes he's at a point right now where he has very little internal opposition, and if there is any, he's able to shut that down completely, as we've seen, for example, his mid-air assassination of the head of the Wagner Group, and also the mysterious death of a former minister of transport this week. He has complete control of the media, and also a new report this morning of how Russian schools and summer camps are being mobilized to teach kids that Russia is a powerful country. They're being taught how to use weapons. They're being taught things like Ukraine is an enemy state, that they're fascists or Nazis. And of course, at the same time, the entire economy has been mobilized to turn into a wartime economy. So that has reportedly lifted, economic growth. But again, how long can that last? I should add one more thing. It helps if you have friends like China, like North Korea, like Iran, some other countries as well. China is said to be helping helping Russia develop a new generation of drones in a special economic zone far away from Moscow. And just the other day, was quite notable. A senior Chinese official said that, I believe it was the foreign minister, said that China does not want to see Russia lose this war. So there you have it.
And you've been at the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Rome just yesterday. There have been some important developments there, including Germany offering to buy Patriot missiles for Ukraine. what sort of impact could that have? I mean, we've seen the hesitancy of
Yeah.
the US government to sell them directly, but presumably they'd be much more happy to sell them to an established European partner like Germany.
Yeah, well, just a small correction there. I've been covering it remotely from Odessa, but people may be confused because I was shown on a broadcaster yesterday next to the big Ukraine Reform Conference logo. This is something that happens annually. It's been in Berlin and London. I've attended both of those, and this year in Italy. Timing is very, very odd, if you ask me, not only of what's happening here in Ukraine. I mean, most of the movers and shakers are there, but also it happens during the height of the um, Catholic Jubilee celebrations in Rome. So it's a very congested time to have something like this there. Having said that, yeah, the I believe is the Ukrainian Prime Minister who tallied up some figures and said that the total cost of reconstruction of Ukraine is now hitting $1 trillion. 1 trillion. Try to get your head around that. Now, there are some, notable things in there. Mr. Zelensky made it clear that investment is badly needed to help Ukraine move along its domestic drone production, which is happening at an incredible rate right now. I mean, I've seen one or two of them, and they can do amazing things. And also things related to rebuilding military infrastructure. But then there's a lot of other kind of side items there that is being talked about at this conference: tourism, sport. But there's a very, very big omission that, if I can put it in plain language, really pisses us off. Those of us who have worked so hard to support the Ukrainian media sector pre-war and during this war, and that's the media sector. Not one mention. And I was at the London conference and also at the Berlin one. And I remember clearly, as if it was yesterday, I went up to Prime Minister Dennis Schmidl at the time and said, "What the heck? I mean, where is media in the program?" And I got a shrug of shoulders and stonewalling. Same thing happened in Berlin. The Deputy Prime Minister, I believe she's Minister of Economy now, Svidorenko, looked at me in a blank stare when I said, "Where is media on the program?" Look, this is not rocket science. Everybody knows two things. Number one is that if you want, business to come into Ukraine, especially during wartime, they need independent, robust, factual information to find out what's going on. And number two is that there's no better check on corruption, as we all well know, than a robust, independent, free media sector. That does not exist right now. So, as I wrote in my New York Times piece earlier this year, a majority of Ukrainians say that after the war on corruption is the biggest priority here in Ukraine. And I can tell you from talking to a lot of Ukrainians who have sought safe haven overseas is they are not going to come back to an old Ukraine where corruption is rife. So let me quickly tell you what the toll is. It's absolutely horrible, and that's why I think this decision by the organizer of the conference, which is co-organized by Italy and by the Ukrainians, is reckless because hundreds of newsrooms, especially closer to the front line, have been obliterated by Russian fire. Hundreds, probably even more, journalists have been displaced or put out of action because they've either been drafted or they volunteered or they're helping the general war effort. On top of that, the advertising market has totally collapsed. Even before the war, it was a very skewed market because it was controlled by oligarchs. And right now it's gotten even worse. And that's been compounded by an early decision in the war by the Zelensky presidency to impose what's called a TV marathon. It's a 24/7 channel, which the main channels, not the opposition channels, have been invited on. And every evening it features a long, talk by Mr. Zelensky. At the beginning of the war, definitely it served its purpose. It was very patriotic and it, helped rally people. But now its ratings are low. People tell me it's boring. And again, it skewed the whole market because these channels are really constrained in how much advertising revenue they can get. And then there's also talk among my journalism friends. I was at the Ukrainian Journalism Conference in Bucha last year, and a lot of talk there. If they're not facing censorship by the authorities, there's a kind of self-censorship going on, because let's not forget, it's martial law, and the penalties for the Ukrainian media, especially for violating certain provisions of martial law, are very, very harsh indeed. So you have this chill over the media. One more thing, and I think it's important, there's an award-winning Ukrainian investigative program here called Schema or Schemes. It's part of Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, which, by the way, is also suffering from cuts thanks to Mr. Trump. Anyway, they said, I think about a year or two ago already, that they're having problems getting investigative journalists. It's so difficult right now to get manpower in any sector you look at. So that's another I'll end with this. That's another thing I should put forward, is that you can talk about investment, Ukraine reconstruction, Ukraine is open for business, all you want. Fact of the matter is there's a huge manpower shortage right here. So how is one going to come here, build a big factory, and where are you going to find the hands to operate it? So I had to get that out of my system, but this is unforgivable. It's really unforgivable what's been done here, because 40 international Ukrainian media organizations came together, put out an open letter to the organizer and said, what's going on? Media is nowhere on the main program of the URC in Rome, and apparently not a peep in response.
Well, elsewhere, we've also heard out of the ASEAN meeting that Secretary of State Marco Rubio from the US has issued something of a warning to Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov that Donald Trump is getting increasingly frustrated with the Russians over the lack of any movement on ceasefire talks, if there was any, and is warning them that they are seriously considering sanctions, more weapons to Ukraine. What should we make of that? Because we have heard this sort of language out of the White House before, haven't we?
We have indeed. Kind of starting to sound like a broken record. Also, as part of that news lines coming out of Malaysia and the ASEAN summit, we heard from Secretary of State Rubio that Mr. Trump will be making some sort of announcement. I believe it is going to be on Monday in terms of Russia. Let's see what that is. As you know, there's a very robust bill on the Senate floor right now. 80 co-sponsors, Senator Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal, both Republicans, both from the South, both from Trump country. They're co-sponsoring a bill that proposes to levy 500% tariffs on goods from countries that buy Russian oil, gas, and uranium. Well, guess who the biggest buyers of Russian oil are? Among them, China and India. We are now being told, because Mr. Trump is said to be leaning into the wishes of Republicans who are sympathetic towards Ukraine, that he will indeed sign the bill. And Speaker Johnson said he's going to push it through. There is a presidential waiver included in that, so he will have some flexibility. But this is what I've argued all along, is that in order for Mr. Putin to stop this senseless killing, is that the noose around him, the economic noose, needs to tighten significantly. So if those tariffs were to be put in place, that could, down the line, really starve the Russian war machine of income. Let's see what happens. Russia and its buddies have become masters at evading sanctions, shadow fleets of ships and all kinds of things, putting things through shell companies in countries like Gabon, Hong Kong, and Thailand. But I think this is a very, very good step. Finally, in terms of the tough language, there has been an interesting reaction from Moscow. A reading of the Russian press day before yesterday really took a different tone in terms of Russian attitudes towards the United States. And we know that most media outlets there are mouthpiece of the Kremlin. But they described the relationship between the U.S. and Russia right now. The Russian word is holodok, or chill. And they really ridiculed Mr. Trump. They used the term, this is a man who has 7 Fridays in 1 week. It's the Russian term for he blows hot and cold. So that to me, I thought about it for a day or so. That to me signals, are we headed now at a divide where the two sides are going to go their own separate ways, do what they want? Mr. Putin thinking, no worries about Trump. I've got the backing of Xi Jinping in China. I've got big clients like India. I've got Iran on my side. Yeah, it's not a very good development, if you ask me.
And it's not just the US, there's also the EU coming in with an 18th round of sanctions, which is working its way through their system at the moment. How's the Kremlin going to be reading all of this, do you think, this building an incoming level of sanctions pressure?
As a joke. Let me be blunt. You said it, 18, 1-8, 18 in capital letters, 18 sanction package. Why on earth did the EU, in all of their wisdom, not bombard Russia with 18 sanctions packages in February of 2022 when Russia launched its full-scale invasion? Why did it take so long to get us to this point? And by the way, we are talking on Friday. Slovakia, up until the time you and I are talking, is still blocking that package. I understand there's going to be another attempt to pass it today, but this is not being taken seriously by the Kremlin. What would be taken seriously, and it is not beyond the capacity of these brains in Brussels to do this, is to take that 180, 190 billion euros of frozen Russian assets and say, that's it. Moscow, you're not getting it back. It is going to Ukraine for reconstruction, for weapons purchases. Game over. The problem is you have people like Christine Lagarde, the head of the European Central Bank, talking this down, saying, oh, it would weaken confidence in Europe and the euro. Well, I have a message for her. Go ahead and block this and talk it down and wait for another year or two when Russia intensifies its strikes on Ukraine, when it tries to push millions more Ukrainians out of Ukraine into your member states. How expensive is that going to be for you? How expensive is it going to be to rebuild Ukraine after that? It's going to go way beyond that $1 trillion. And how expensive is it going to be to buy croissants in Brussels or French bread in France when grain is not coming out down the block from me out of World Port of Odessa? Think about that when you wake up tomorrow morning.
Well, Michael Bociurkiw, thank you very much for joining me today on Frontline.
My pleasure.
You've been watching or listening to Frontline for Times Radio with me, Louis Sykes. For more on the war in Ukraine, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for a membership, or you can hear all the latest news and analysis on Times Radio or read it at thetimes.com. And remember, we are in both podcast and video form. You can find us on your favourite podcast platform. It's Times Radio's Frontline, or you can watch us on Times Radio's YouTube channel. Thanks very much. Goodbye.